can't have more than 2 mics on at a time, I think. They interfere with each other.
Okay. This special meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N25-20, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The Board of Education will conduct this special meeting as a teleconference. Remote access to the Board of Education special meeting in compliance with the Governor's Executive Order in response to the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak. The district will conduct the Board of Education special meeting as a teleconference. Please use toll-free numbers and meeting ID, which is posted on the website and also the agenda. The board agenda is available online, www.tusd.org. Public comment can be submitted via email to the superintendent's office at superintendent@tusd.org. Submissions will be read at the public meeting. Submissions can be received prior to the start of the open session meeting and during the meeting. The guidelines for public comment will be in accordance with Board Policy 2350. Thank you, Ms. Reagan.
Thank you, Dr. Manaan, for getting us started here. I do want to have a moment to have a Pledge of Allegiance this evening, Dr. Manaan, if we can. And you lead us, if you wouldn't mind, for your last meeting here.
Terry, please unmute.
I'm muted again. Doing it itself. It's taking its own, no, it's doing its own thing here. Okay, so thank you all for participating. Oh, Al, you can sit. Thank you. We're done. You may be like, sorry. Oh, yeah. So we're going to begin with a report. Oh, actually, adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second for that, please?
Move. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda of this special meeting of the Board of Education 29th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have I do have a report out of closed session. The report is that the Board of Education in closed session voted to approve the administrative appointment of Dr. Keith Butler, Chief Business Officer, effective July 14th, 2020, subject to approval of an employment agreement to be presented at the July 13th, 2020 Board of Education meeting. We do have actually Dr. Butler here present with us, I believe. Hey, welcome. And you get to sit here with us, Dr. Butler, while I read a little bit about you, if you don't mind. Dr. Keith Butler, Chief Business Officer, Administrative Services. Dr. Butler comes to us from Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District, where he served as the Associate Superintendent Business Services since 2017. His areas of responsibility included fiscal management, facilities, maintenance and operations, risk management, benefits, accounting, payroll, accounts payable, purchasing, food services, and transportation. It's a jack of all trades for sure. He's previously served as a consultant for the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team in Bakersfield, California from 2014 to 2019, and an associate superintendent in the Coronado Unified School District from 2013 to 2017, a consultant in business advisory services in the San Diego County Office of Education from 2010 to 2013, and a senior program manager at Virtual Education in Los Angeles, California for the 2009 to 2010 year. He also served in various business positions at the California State University, San Marcos from 2000 to 2009. Dr. Butler received his Bachelor of Arts in Economics with a concentration in microeconomics at Claremont, same place my son went, in Claremont, California in 1984. His Master of Business Administration at California State University, San Marcos in 1997, and his PhD in Educational Studies, Educational Leadership and High Education at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in 2007. We would like to welcome Dr. Keith Butler to our district. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The floor is yours. Take your few moments here, sir.
Just a couple of words. First of all, I'd really like to thank the board and Dr. Stowe for the confidence that you're placing in me for the position of Chief Business Officer for Torrance Unified. I've had the pleasure of working on several projects with staff from Torrance Unified during the time that I've been in this area, as well as watching board meetings, and I've always been very impressed with the dedication of your staff to the organization and to the students that they serve. I'm really excited about joining such a strong team, a cohesive team, as we work to face the challenges that are ahead of us. And we know there are a lot of challenges right in front of us right now, but I do believe that with strong collaboration and strong communication, we can meet those challenges successfully. And I look forward to being a part of that team. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. You're welcome to stay with us, or if you need to go, we understand, but please feel free to be with us. We are going to be discussing several things for your job that's coming up for you here.
I think I'll put you on the TV to watch it a little bit larger than this, but I will be here for the meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so that takes us to oral communications for unscheduled hearings.
I have no email.
You have none? Did you, Dr. Stowe does have one. So that's for non-agenda items. I'm going to read a little, but most of it is irrelevant to the presentation this evening. The Board of Education does welcome input from the public, and in order to discuss district business in an orderly manner for the privacy of the speakers and to help staff respond directly, we do have to follow board policies. Most of those policies actually do not apply to the Zoom meeting or to the virtual format, but we ask that presentations still be limited to 3 minutes, and that speakers let us know who you are when you are speaking, and that we do have a right to remove disruptive individuals if we need to. Anybody who does willfully disturb a public meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor. So knowing that that won't happen this evening, Dr. Stowe, did you want to go ahead and share what you had?
Sure. I got one message from Deborah Tabush, president of the Torrance Teachers Association. She writes, "Good evening, President Reagan's school board members, Dr. Manaan and cabinet. Tonight, I would like to begin by saying farewell to Dr. Manaan. I hope that you take some time to enjoy your family and friends as you transition into a new chapter of your life. Your dedication and effort to improve our district's facilities through bond measures is something that TUSD desperately needed. This legacy will not only be remembered by looking at the improvements of our school sites, but by your name adorning the district's aquatic center. I say farewell and not goodbye because you never know when our paths may meet again. Until then, live in the moment and enjoy the start of your new adventure. Deb Tabush."
Thank you, Deb.
That was very nice. Thank you, Deb. Appreciate that. And that's actually a terrific segue to the other folks that I see who have visited us this evening. We have a couple of other folks who do want to speak with you, I believe, during these unscheduled hearing moments. And let's start with, let's see, Almer Tsuchi, our Assembly member.
All right. Thank you. I've learned to first reach for that unmute button, and hopefully that worked. I see Terry laughing, and so it looks like it's working. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to join the TUSD family on this very personally emotional, special event for me. I mean, I wish we could do this on, in a more personal way with all of us in the room back in normal times. But it looks like this is the best that we could do at this time. I'm scrolling through all the photos, and other than Keith that I know from Palos Verdes Unified, I see all these familiar faces from when I first joined the Torrance Unified School Board 15 years ago in 2005. And that was shortly after I was elected in November of 2015, which was 2005, which was shortly after Dr. Manaan started as our superintendent for the Torrance Unified School District. And, it's been 15 years that I've worked with George. It's hard to believe how quickly time passes. But I look at all the faces, and especially you, Dr. Manaan. I just have so much fondness, so many warm and fuzzies, when I think about my TUSD family. And Dr. Manaan, you were the leader of this effort, of this family that I had the privilege of being a part of for 7 years, from 2005 to 2012. And then I continued to work with you, seeking your guidance, your advice, your input on all things related to K through 12 education. It's a bittersweet moment. I'm going to miss being able to call you up, George, and to ask for your advice and ask for what's happening with Torrance Unified. But I know you promised me that you're going to still answer your cell phone when I call you. As I understand, you're going to be you may have already moved closer to the state capitol up in the Sacramento area. So I again thank you to Torrance Unified, the Dr. or Mrs. Reagans, and the entire board and staff of Torrance Unified. I have a special resolution here, although I'm putting it up and I'm putting it back down before you can read the lettering, because unfortunately our resolution department in the state capitol is closed now, and so, but Dr. Manaan, when the state capitol print shop is back in full operation, I would like to have this resolution prepared, and to recognize your 15 years of strong leadership through some of the most difficult years that Torrance Unified had faced, after the Great Recession, when I was still on the board, and then to better financial times where you succeeded in rebuilding our schools, working with our entire community to lead the effort to rebuild our schools, and to guide the Torrance Unified community through 15 years of educational leadership. I think so many people in the Torrance community don't realize what a big difference you have made in the community and in the lives of hundreds of thousands of students that have passed through the hallways of our Torrance schools. But from the bottom of my heart, and I say thank you, George, for all of your great work and your leadership. You have certainly made a huge difference in the Torrance community. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Al, and I'll still answer.
Thank you, Al, for being here and doing that. Appreciate that. And we do look forward to seeing the, we'll have to see it, George. You have to take a picture of it and send it back to us. Thanks again, Al. You're welcome to stay too, or if you need to go, we understand too. Next, we have another visitor, our very own mayor of the city of Torrance, Pat Fury, who has some wisdom for you, I'm sure, Dr. Manning. There you go. Mayor Fury, you're on.
Thank you, Ms. Reagans. On behalf of my colleagues on the Torrance City Council, I'm really pleased that our proclamation department is working. So we really do have a proclamation to give. But I want to thank you for inviting me to honor my colleague, Dr. George Manaan. When people refer to retirement, they often mention tired cliches about individuals taking a well-earned rest, stepping down, or hanging up their gloves. In reality, retirement does not mark the end of a person's life, but rather a new chapter, a new adventure. And I'm probably exhibit A on that one. I imagine that many of you have mixed emotions about celebrating this occasion in Dr. Manaan's life. On one hand, we know that TUSD will be different without Dr. Manaan's determination and insight. On the other hand, some may be envious that he'll be doing all the things we'd like to do in our free time. But George, it is a well-deserved retirement. Since 2005, you have been part of the Torrance community. For 15 years, you have served as a decisive leader, garnering respect and fostering collaboration. You've been an active participant of our Students in Government Day, 8th grade program, and also a strong support in our effort to expand the program to our high school seniors. You've been a pleasure to partner and work alongside, always making yourself available and open to some new ideas. Year after year, you've made countless contributions to many local education and community organizations, including the Torrance Education Foundation, Torrance Council of PTAs, Torrance Rotary, YMCA Board, Torrance Chamber Board, and Advisory Board of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation. When you chose to come to Torrance, it was really a family investment. Both of your sons attended TUSD schools, and your wife Nancy has been a visible and active community member as an involved parent, especially in student music organization and in leadership positions for the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation. It really has been a family contribution to our great city. So I thank you, Dr. Manaan, and the whole Manaan family for all of your support, what you've given to our city. Dr. Manaan's determination and persistence brought several successes to our city. Since the beginning of his leadership, he did not waste any time. George led Torrance in 2 successful campaigns, which ultimately passed 4 bond measures, totaling to more than $500 million in upgrades to our schools. And I might mention that this was right in the midst of our Great Recession. Construction of completely new, energy efficient, innovative design for J.H. Hull Middle School, the new classroom building at Fern Elementary, and complete renovation of all 4 high school stadiums, including installation of turf sports fields and new tracks at the stadiums. Completed on time, and what we like in government is under budget. These are just some of the fruits of Dr. Manaan's labor. One area that both the city and the school district recognized a critical need was for an aquatic center. And because of Dr. Manaan's dedication, Torrance has welcomed a much needed state-of-the-art district aquatic center for all TUSD students. And might I add, some Olympians have already paid a visit or two.
Mm-hmm.
George, your accomplishments and contribution are endless. Thank you for your leadership these past 15 years. Your influence, your friendship, your leadership have benefited our community and will continue to make an impact in your absence. Terry and I just wish you all the best, to you and Nancy and the boys, in this next go around. And if you ever decide that you want to run for public office, please give me a call ahead of time, will you? I want to talk to you. In the meantime, congratulations.
Thank you, Matt.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. And thank you for the support you've given all through those
And it really was a certificate, wasn't it?
years.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here to do that, Mayor.
My
We
pleasure.
appreciate that. I think there was a lovely framed proclamation that was just passed to Dr.
I brought
Manaan.
that over, so it's right here.
Take with him and put into his new home in Lincoln, California. So he will be very excited. I don't think he's going to follow in your footsteps, though, Mayor Fury. When retired, he went on to be mayor. I don't know if that's retirement or craziness, but that's where he goes. But thank you, Mayor Fury. Suchi, we appreciate you being here. George is certainly going to be missed. Thank you for honoring him. But we are here for a meeting, and we do need to proceed with our business. You all are welcome to stay or duck out if you need to. We are going to be discussing the state budget and a reopening of schools plan for our school district. So in order to get that going, we have two discussion items. We're going to call them discussion items because we won't be actually taking action on either one of them. Again, there are instructions to the public if you wish to make a comment and have not done so. Received any? Okay. But there is opportunity for input. If you can't get in this evening, you can always write, and we will make sure that we get back to you at superintendent@TUSD.org. So our first item of business is the 2020 State Budget Agreement Update. And I believe that Dr. Stowe will lead us through that.
Thank you, Mrs. Reagans and board members. Mr. Morrow will share the screen for a presentation. But before he does, I'd like to point out that we have over 240 people that have logged on to see this meeting tonight. So thanks to all of you for coming out. And if you've tried to attend in the past and got bounced, I apologize for that. We increased our Zoom agreement to be able to host up to 500 people. So we know that the work that we're doing here for the district is of great interest to the community. And so thanks for taking a Monday evening to learn a little bit about what we're doing and help provide feedback and guidance. So it's definitely appreciated. So tonight, as I said at the June 15th meeting, actually this is June 29th. Oh, the information was as of June 25th. So on the meeting June 15th, you approved a budget that had a $5.3 million deficit. That the budget was in the works at the time at the state level. Mr. Muratsuchi called me on Friday to talk through it, and we appreciate you, Assemblyman, for all the advocacy that you do on behalf of Torrance and districts in the South Bay and the district you represent. This budget is significantly better than what the governor's proposal was for the May revise. And so I just want to go through some of the details of it for you here tonight. So what this new agreement that has been approved by the Senate and the Assembly does is to, here, hang on, I need to move my screen, thank you. It maintains the funding level for 1920. So there's no cost of living adjustment, but there's also no deficit. If you remember previously, we were looking at almost an 8% deficit after a COLA had been applied, so really a 10% cut. And so the difference for TUSD from a flat funding level is $15.5 million in our base funding and $1.1 million in our supplemental grant. So as we break this down a little bit, we also know that there are deferrals. There have been articles in the newspaper on this. And so the next slide, please, Gil. So total deferral of $11 billion. After this weekend, we think it's closer to 12, but 11 is close enough for now. And what this means is basically that it's $5.8 billion more of based on what you approved at the June budget, but it will be restored if federal funds become available prior to October 15th. And so we really won't see the effect of these deferrals until next spring, when the funds would be deferred from the spring months into the following year. But again, if federal dollars become available up to the amount that would be given to the schools, those deferrals would be offset by that. So it really pushes the burden of borrowing cash on local school districts. And so we will be working with the county. I know we every year we approve a trans tax revenue anticipation note, and we never use them. There may be needed in the spring, but again, we will wait and see if those federal dollars materialize. So there is a lot of money in the new budget that is one time. So the LCFF ongoing dollars that were on the previous slides, that's continuing. But in addition, there's $15.2 million in one-time money that we will use. It does come with some strings attached, and so these are our estimates based on the proposed or the budget that was passed. And so it was $5.3 million in additional special education funds. These funds are from the federal CARES Act for learning loss mitigation. So we know that with the shutdown of schools and having to go virtual, that students did suffer, certain students more than others with regard to their loss of learning. And so these funds are intended for us to put things in place to be able to make up some of that. Many of these funds expire at the end of December. Some of them continue on through next year, but most of them do expire in December. And so we'll be working with the educational services team to do some additional things for some of our students with disabilities, some of our students that are low income or foster youth or English learners, to help out of the supplemental grant to be able to catch them up. We also have some additional $3.3 million in LCFF formula money that was put, again, one time into the budget. Our hope is that what we already do for students, that we can capture some of what we already do with these dollars, and therefore saving those funds for future years. But we really need to examine what we're doing and what the needs of the students are in order to then develop what we need to do. So having this one-time money is definitely a bonus for us to be able to provide some services to students and catch them up. Additional piece of the learning loss mitigation funds is this learning continuity attendance plan that we will have to bring to the board later in the year. So some components of this on the next slide show that just as examples of some of the things that we need to do for and show that we are utilizing this money for our learning supports, extending instructional time, whether that's in person or virtually, and providing core academic supports, but also could be used for technology needs that we have and professional development for these students. The learning continuity and attendance plan that the state superintendent will provide a template for that, and then we will bring to the board a resolution later in the fall with the revisions and of the budget, and also board approved or board adopts has to do this as a budget overview for parents as part of the program that is being put forth by the state. So again, the LCAP is no longer required for the 2021 year. Instead, we are doing this learning continuity and attendance plan, and you'll hear a little bit more about some of the language in the bill that was passed on attendance as we look at what the school year next year will look like on number of instructional days and minutes and so on. Part of the budget bill was also staff protection. There was a concern around that there's a provision in Ed Code that if there's no COLA, then you can lay off certificated staff but before August. But part of the staff protection, if you go to the next slide, please, Gil. It does not allow districts to lay off non-management certificated staff for the following year or effective during the 2021 school year, nor does it allow a district to lay off certificated staff in positions of nutrition, transportation, or custodial services effective in the 2021 school year. Other programs that are funding was restored, these had initially had cuts ranging from 10 to 50%, were the career tech and adult ed programs, as well as our preschool program that funds our TIKES students. And so what's next? July 13th, we will bring forward a budget, the budget revisions that obviously we do this every summer. We make adjustments based on the June budget. This information's on the next slide. In August, we still are not out of the woods because we are hearing that there still may be potential August revisions at the state level based on income tax receipts. September, we'll bring forward the learning continuity plan, and December, the budget overview for parents, as well as the first interim report on the revised budget. So we are looking good through the 2021-22 school year. Estimated roughly about 3% still, but again, this is based on flat funding for next year as well. And also we haven't accounted for any increases in salaries in the budget proposal here tonight. So I'll take any questions on our budget.
Mrs. Reagan, may I make a comment before Mr. Murphy?
Yes, please do, Dr. Manning.
I just want to make sure that all of us understand that the learning loss funds, and it is a considerable amount of money, we would have received 0 had not Mr. Murasucci, and I believe he is the first person in the assembly to speak up on this issue, which he did at a hearing. And then I know other members, other colleagues of his just flat said, well, that's wrong. But it was Mr. Murasucci who was the first speaker to alert his colleagues in the assembly that most districts in the state would be receiving 0 funds. And from that, you can see now that all districts in the state are receiving some of these funds. And I have to say, I credit Mr. Murasucci with being the person to stand up and say, this is wrong. Thank you, Al.
Amen. Thank you, Al. Made a big difference to us for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments, questions? Budget world continues. I guess there will be an update in August, although actually CSBA today was saying they weren't sure how much of an update that was going to be, since they actually did alter some of the numbers in this final budget proposal. So some of the changes have already been reflected. So who knows what's going to happen down the road.
And there will still be a fiscal cliff out in a year or so.
Yep.
But for now, at least we can sort of hold tight and hope that the federal dollars come through, which I know the state legislature
Is strongly attached to, and I hope that they're right, that that's going to happen. Anybody else? Comments? Questions? Well, I guess that's it for the budget update then. Thank you very much. And we will move on to our second discussion item, the discussion 7.3, the reopening of schools status update. We have lots and lots of discussion and here, and I believe that Dr. Stowe beginning.
Thank you, Mrs. Reagans and board members and community. This is a very difficult time for many, I know. Many questions out there as to what is happening. And as you know, districts all over the county are developing plans and just trying to figure out what is going to happen for our students and our employees come August. But as presented at our meeting on June 15th, TUSD has established a working task force and committees that have been examining the issues and developing solutions for what a return to school may look like in the fall. These groups include employees, parents, and members of the community who have and continue to devote significant time to meet and research and bring to the table solutions to what is a very complex problem. So it's our intent tonight to present an update of this committee to the board, especially potential models for instruction that the 2021 school year may look like. What we want to allow here tonight, and this is a discussion item only, is to allow the board and members of the community to have a discussion, ask questions, and get more educated on the work to date, because again, these committees have been doing a tremendous amount of work in looking at a variety of ways to get students back in school and also provide education virtually. So just to reiterate, we do need to take our advice and guidance from the Department of Public Health. We are awaiting a new order that is supposed to be released tomorrow. And so based on that and other state agency guidance that we expect to come in, that we will incorporate the models tonight with what we learn in the coming weeks, and then bring to the board on July 13th our plan for approval. We do, as said before, that the physical safety of our students and our staff is the most important, and we also want to ensure that students receive the top quality education that they always have from teachers here in the Torrance Unified School District. So we will next week also I will be sending out information regarding a board workshop that we will have, and also invite the public to communicate and share with us your ideas at that time, so that we can continue to answer concerns. And as of now, that's looking like it's going to be on July 8th in the afternoon. So I will be sending out emails specifically about that. We'll post that on our website to be able to try to elicit as much input as possible and to educate and inform as many people as possible about that that workshop, and then finally bring approval to the board. So we have committee reports from each of our committees tonight, and then at the end we have moved the instruction portion of the presentation, because that's the piece that's going to have the most conversation, I believe. And so the first committee report is Mr. Morrow. Oh, I didn't see that we had the slide. So just again, here's the guiding principles of our task force and our work, that I mentioned. And then on the next slide, you can see again the structure of our reopening task force and the 5 different committees and subcommittees with literally a couple hundred folks that are represented and working very diligently on various aspects of the reopening.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Stowe. So my name is Gil Mara. I am chairing the operations portion of the task force, and it includes 5 subcommittees: nutrition, transportation, information technology, facilities, and the cleaning of facilities. So I'm going to go through these portions fairly quickly so that we can get to instruction. On the operations side / nutritions, we're happy to announce that the USDA did extend their waivers into the next school year, and that provided a lot of flexibility for providing meals to our students. Significantly, it's the piece that allowed flexibility around the serving of meals around a specific time. So that way we can provide bulk meal service, for example, providing multiple meals on a Tuesday for the next 3 or 4 days, and then perhaps on a Thursday through the weekend. So that gave a lot of flexibility, especially towards the alternate day instructional model. We're identifying dining areas for the students. So we're working closely with our principal and site administration so that we can safely seat the students as they eat their meals. Again, allowing for the social distancing, and also, again, to space out the students, installing new point of sale stations around the campuses so that we can spread the students out, again, providing for more spacing of the students. So our nutrition services director, Kathleen Cole, is hard at work on the nutrition side. On the cleaning side, there's no lack of guidelines from the CDC, the CDE, LA County Department of Health, and LA County Office of Education. We have many guidelines that really overlap, and I'm sure a lot of us have seen a lot of the literature out there in terms of cleaning and disinfecting. So operations is in a space where we can roll up our sleeves now and begin preparing for whatever instructional model is presented to us. So we've already purchased the electrostatic cleaners. We've been testing it. We've stocked our disinfectants so that our school sites can order those now. We're modifying our custodial schedules because, as you know, there's a big emphasis on cleaning and disinfecting multiple touch points, areas in the schools where there's a lot of foot traffic, or well, basically where kids are touching the desks and handrails, but not just the kids, also faculty and staff. And with that, we're having to adjust and examine our cleaning protocols to match the guidelines as recommended by the Department of Health, which, as we know, may change slightly when we get the new orders, hopefully tomorrow or sometime this week. On the facility side, what we're doing is preparing to make sure that our faculty, staff, and students are coming to a safe learning environment and a working environment. So we've begun to purchase our plexiglass sheets, and in-house are making plexiglass barriers. And you see one of our folks here actually doing this in-house in our shop. And what we're doing is we're fabricating about 800 pieces right now, and we're about done. And they'll be used in spaces where we have to be within 6 feet of each other, and that could be a workspace, or it could be an individual teacher working with a student one-on-one. The intent is not to put a plexiglass barrier around every desk in the classroom. It's really in some specialty situations where you're within 6 feet of a person for any good length of time. We're developing our signage, and here's just a sample of the signage that we've got designed by our webmaster, and we've got multiple signs, again, to encourage the social distancing and to, washing your hands and looking for symptoms of signs of COVID. So the signs will be going up as soon as we can figure out right? Where in the schools we need to place these. And so again, we're working with our administration in the placement of their signs. Isolation areas for, what do we do when we have a sick person on campus? Does the kid just need a Band-Aid? Is it just something that's minor? Or if they're exhibiting some illnesses, we need to have a place for isolation for that person. Prepping our workspaces, and then here engineering controls, meaning looking at our HVAC system, making sure we have good air circulation and flow, and then really just good general maintenance that we would do during the summer to prep our buildings for a return to school. We'll be changing out all of the air filters like we normally do. We have thousands of them, and that work will start again in August. We do that 3 times a year. Okay. And in IT and transportation, the CDE has brokered some deals with our big carriers and cell phone providers, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Time Warner Spectrum, so that we can try and reduce the digital divide between students. We acquired some hotspots for our kids, and we've got those out to the families that really needed access. We're working on our acceptable use policies because, as you know, the distance learning came upon us fairly quickly. So are the guidelines, safety and security and protection and privacy, are those all in place for both our students and our staff? So we're working with legal counsel to make sure that the language fits the environment that we're in right now. On the IT side, that's my wheelhouse because I'm the director of technology. And whatever model we're delivered, whether it's AM, PM, or alternating day, or even both, we kind of just have to put our heads down. We can do it. We have a system that can accommodate the different types of schedules. But the sooner we receive that on the IT side, then we really have to get cracking and developing the master schedules. We alluded to some bond measures and Measure T upgrades. So all of our instructional staff, our teachers have been receiving new laptops this summer. So infrastructure-wise, we're ready to deliver, whether it's live stream, synchronous learning, asynchronous learning, having the virtual platform in place, we're ready to go. And lastly, we've got our bus routes. We shuttle about 400 students daily. And we'll have to really look at that because, as you know, we also have to have social distancing in place on our buses. And we're working especially with our special ed department to look at possible efficiencies in the bus route so we can minimize that contact time between students. Okay, and that is a really quick rundown on operations. And I will move on to Dr. Liberati, Human Resources, Health and Safety. Take it away.
Thank you, Gil. I appreciate that. And thank you, Dr. Stowe, for leading us off. And so you could see there's quite a bit of overlap, especially between the HR, health and safety, and operations. The collaboration is critical with all 5 committees, but at this point with operations, as we continue to work through the information that we have to be able to provide that information to other committees. We'll continue to do that. We've completed the employee survey, and that is now in the task force folder for folks to be able to review. And we'll continue, of course, to look at different protocols that are in place, including state codes, laws, looking at the collective bargaining agreement, other acts such as the Families First Coronavirus Act or HR 6201, in order to inform what we do as a committee, but also to support the other 4 committees and, of course, the task force and recommendations that then ultimately go to the board. Next screen. Dr. Stowe mentioned that we are waiting for the guidelines, the most recent guidelines that the County Health Department and Los Angeles County Office of Education are collaborating together in order to provide to us and the other 80 school districts in the county. We are hoping for those soon, hoping for tomorrow. In the meantime, we do have quite a bit of guidance that was already in place. We think there'll be some updates, but that guidance at this point allows us to continue to work with operations to put in place as much of the guidance as possible to support that return to the site for work. We're continuing to work with all employees. Of course, as mentioned by Dr. Stowe, the communication piece is critical. And of course, ensuring that the protocols are in place. And then as we work with all employees, we may have employees that have more concerns or more questions. And then of course, work with them on a more individual basis to attempt to resolve those concerns and alleviate the stress and anxiety by ensuring that the protocols and safety measures are in place to help them return to the work site and conduct the work that they do for our students. And I know it indicates quite a bit regarding our employees, but these protocols really are for everybody that comes onto the campus or works with our students, including our students, potential visitors, volunteers, and other employees that come onto the campus or work with our students, including walk-on coaches and substitutes, et cetera. So that briefly completes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Librati. My name is Edon Kim, and I am the chair of the Family and Community Engagement Committee. First, let me speak about the actions and recommendations of the committee, as well as mention the subcommittees of our committee. The Communication Systems Subcommittee helped disseminate a letter last week from Dr. Manaan to parents summarizing both the blended and distance learning models that you'll hear more about during today's presentation. Along with the letter, there was also a colorful infographic about the learning models, a set of general frequently asked questions, and a second survey for parents that asked them to provide more details and questions about their preferences. The Community Partner Subcommittee has researched, collected, and prepared in multiple platforms, including in both virtual and hard copy ones, many helpful resources for parents. These resources have been categorized into 4 different areas, and they are academic support, essential services, childcare and activities, and social emotional. The third subcommittee of our committee is called Key Systems and Supports, and includes members from TUSD divisions such as Adult Education and Torrance Tykes Preschool, as well as community partners such as the City of Torrance and the YMCA. These groups are in active discussion for the purpose of furnishing childcare, extracurricular programs, and supervision to and for our elementary age students. A list of prioritized student groups have been completed by the subcommittee, and a survey of elementary schools on what spaces they may have available has also been completed. Next slide, please, Mr. Mara. Our next steps for our committee. We will continue to assist in disseminating information that's updated about the plans to reopen schools to all of our district stakeholders. As has occurred in the recent past, and we expect it to continue, recommendations and guidance will be received and then most likely change from various sources. Some of them have been mentioned already, such as the California Department of Education, the Department of Public Health, and Los Angeles County Office of Education. In the next 2 weeks, we will schedule and promote a presentation for parents on the many helpful resources that are available to them in our community. This will include resources in the 4 different categories that I mentioned previously. We'll also assist other task force committees in promoting presentations or trainings that they create in order for staff or parents to participate in them. Lastly, thanks to the second parent survey, which just closed on Friday, each elementary school now has a better idea of approximately how many students at their site may need childcare. The subcommittee will continue to work with our district divisions and community partners in order to schedule sessions, as well as assist sites in preparing areas for childcare, and to help identify school employees, other district employees, or community partners who can also assist in supervising. That concludes this committee. Next is Dr. Egan.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Good evening, everyone. So I'm leading the area for social emotional support systems, and we have 5 subcommittees. So in bold here, we have our first subcommittee, the behavior supports. Subcommittee's developed a draft of a matrix to guide students on how to behave appropriately and meet those expectations in the varied potential learning platforms, depending on how we land here as we get through the instructional side of things. Additionally, the team is working on ways to help students feel connected through planned activities. The next subcommittee is the Family Engagement Subcommittee. And it's identified community resources that are currently in place, and then it's also working on strategies to connect parents with the appropriate supports and also some potential parent support groups. Next slide, please. So the next subcommittee is our school-based mental health systems team, and their work is twofold, at least at this point. First, to prioritize mental health awareness through regular lessons, and then second, to ensure that counseling services are available and accessible. Some of the programs that we've had in recent years include a second step curriculum, some teaching strategies on mindfulness, and these will be things that we look to incorporate in a continued fashion regardless of our learning environments. The remaining subcommittees seek to maintain the annual celebratory events for students and staff, and to make sure the school year begins with a welcome back event for students and teachers, regardless of their learning platform. Additionally, the subcommittees want to develop a survey to make sure we are checking on staff wellness and connecting folks with resources as needed. Next slide, please. So in addition, kind of outside of the task force team specifically that I'm working with, as the Senior Director of Secondary Schools, I've been working with some lead folks from the school level. And so we're focused on looking at what the athletic departments and visual performing arts program leads would like to do. And they're currently developing proposals for shortened summer programs to prepare students for fall extracurricular participation. However, as you all know, we're still waiting on guidance from both the Department of Public Health, and then as noted on the slide, you can see CIF, which is the governing body for athletics, will take a position officially, as we're told, by July 20th as to what fall athletics will allow. Thank you, and now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Crumpy.
Thank you, Dr. Egan. I'm starting tonight. We've heard a lot. How many times tonight are we awaiting those state orders? But we did get some legislative direction through the budget trailer bill that I would like to start off my part of the presentation with. The first one being the number of school days. It is 180 days, which is our typical school year. So this did not change for our students next year, regardless of what choice they may have and what model they may be in. There was, though, some flexibility in instructional minutes. And there are reducing the required time in school per day, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. There are requirements for distance learning. Most notably is requiring daily live instruction from our teachers, and setting procedures for students who are not participating in distance learning. Finally, there's been a state emphasis to encourage students to return to school with guidance that really I think is saying in an overarching kind of comment that they would like us to offer in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible, realizing that there are students that we may need to provide distance learning for who are medically at risk or may be exposed to COVID-19. Next slide, Gil. We are planning for all possible scenarios in case we have to return to our distance learning, which we were in stage 1 from the state of California, or can continue to open our schools with greater flexibility. As you see, we are in stage 2 and are planning for that return, but are working and planning for either in any stage that we may be under. And so really, next slide, Gil. The committee, and there are really about 200 people on a variety of committees and subcommittees, have really been preparing for how do we return? How can we be ready for all 4 stages? How do we adhere to the county and state department orders and maintain that social distancing in classrooms? Next slide. One of our teachers, Tara O'Brien from Carr Elementary School, put this visual together to help her elementary subcommittee that she's leading kind of give another depiction of what this means for us as we work as the distance learning in stage 1. As we get to a little bit less restrictive, this blended learning model that I'm going to be speaking of tonight. What does stage 2 look like? Not sure, but it may be these expanded school opportunities. If we move into stage 3, we may be able to do additional events, actually have a student assembly, maybe some kids in a stadium, maybe have a theater performance. So, and then stage 4, are least restrictive when we can return back to what we know is best for kids, which is all students in school, all day long. The committee has really been really discussing multiple models, and tonight really discussing 2 major models: a distance learning model where students are going to learn from home full time, and a blended learning model where they learn from home and from school part of the week. Dr. Kim spoke about survey results that the survey just ended. We're tabulating, but you may remember from our first survey, we had about 76% of our parents saying that they are likely to return to school. The results that came in are now showing that about 80% of our families, if they had to choose today, want to return to school, which means about 20% of our families prefer to learn for distance learning. Next slide. I think probably the question, and I wanted to address this specifically before we start talking about specific models, is, well, wait a minute, you didn't have my option in the survey. And currently that's because we don't have an option available to us to return to a full-time 5-day-a-week return to school model. We cannot physically distance our students within a classroom per our current orders and what we know from the state of California. To do that, it's about a 50% model that we are looking at. That would require twice the classroom space, which would mean twice the teachers. And as you heard our budget presentation tonight, we have a flat budget. We are not going to be able to increase our budget to double our teaching force at this time. So until we receive that stage 4, that's why I had it in kind of 2 slides in 2 different ways. We are not going to be able to entertain this as an option at this time. So our instruction committee, I'm gonna first start talking about the distance learning model. This is learning from home, as I've said, 5 days a week. It is taught by a credentialed TUSD teacher. This means if you're an elementary student or family, you will receive a teacher from our district. That's a 27-to-1 ratio, student to teacher ratio, as we have in the classroom. Same thing. If you are a middle or a high school student, that means that you will get 6 teachers, and we're going to as closely mimic the course selections that you have, whether you're at school or you're choosing distance learning. It is we have chosen to not go with a pre-packaged curriculum. What on earth does that mean? She keeps saying this all the time. Many smaller districts really don't have an option to have a lot of learning resource teachers and teacher leaders that are specialists in designing curriculum. Many of them are having to go with a packaged platform of online material. We started looking at those materials thinking that that's what we needed to do for distance learning shortly after spring break. Pretty much every teacher that looked at those voted them down unanimously, and we're designing our own platform. We think we can do better. We know we can do better. Plus, our created curriculum and materials by our teachers that will have our own textbooks, our supplemental materials, the familiarity of our platforms and using Clever and Google Classroom and eTUSD and all of the things that your students already know about, we think is all the better for the continuity of learning, both when we get to phase 4 and your children can return, but also in case there might have to be some fluctuation between distance learning and hybrid learning within your family. I'm sorry that, and I'm gonna explain that different model in a minute. And if we're buying an online platform by some for-profit company, and then your child needs to return to school, and now it's a different platform and a different set of materials, we think that this offers a better continuity between our teachers and for your students. Also, just a little added bonus for our elementary families, because we are building our own platform. Parents who choose, who are interested, who may want more of a homeschooling model, they are going to have the opportunity to participate in a weekly session from our district lead teachers. Don't get me wrong, this is not to teach you how to be a teacher, so you're going to be the ones teaching your children. Your child in elementary school will have a teacher that will be instructing them live synchronously on a daily basis. This is a bonus, and that we think this will help to kind of foreshadow next week's learning and give you kind of an insight to how to better help your child. Next slide, Gil. And this is what a first glimpse of this virtual learning platform that we're designing looks like. And you can see it's kind of like a landing page, if you will. You'll see week 1 here for 3rd grade has the 5 days of week. The little icons at the top are the different subject areas. And then you can also see just a glance at a Tuesday English language arts lesson that's talking about text features. I will say I got the first, Ed Services got to see this from the team last Friday. There's gonna be thematic units. So if you have a kindergartner and a 3rd grader, I think I can divulge the first theme is patterns. So you could have common conversations over different themes at the dinner table, even though they will be learning different content that is standards aligned. So I just wanted to give you a little glimpse of what that looked like. Now, on to the tough stuff. Blended learning model. Students are going to learn at home and at school for part of the week. Students are going to be broken up, we expect, into 2 cohorts and assigned teachers, just like in the past. And I want to briefly kind of talk about our 2 models. You've heard us talk about an AM/PM model. This means that students would attend school 4 days a week for about 2.5 to 2 3/4 hours a day. They would either come in the morning or they would come in the afternoon. Now, I want to go back to that instructional minutes that I said that I mentioned in the first slide, and I said I was going to go into more detail. With the instructional minutes flexibility, this would mean in an AM/PM model, your child would be in school for about 2.5 hours a day and would have asynchronous, meaning not live with the teacher, for about 90 minutes a day at home. And I say, why is there no teacher in that time? Because that teacher will have the other half of the class coming for the PM model and will not be available asynchronously for that 90-minute period of time. And vice versa. If your child is a PM scheduled student, they would have about 90 minutes of asynchronous learning in the morning before they come to school. In the alternating day model, we call that AB, students would attend school all day, 2 days a week, and they would learn from home 3 days a week. This would mean, with the instructional minutes, that on those learn from home days for 4th grade and up, there's a little bit of different minutes for the younger kids. That this would be 4 hours of asynchronous instruction from home on a daily basis. Now I'm going to go into, Gil, the next slide. Really what the committees have been working hard on is discussing these models, and rather than just voting and taking a survey, they've been discussing the pros and cons. They actually, believe it or not, is over 70 pages of notes and tables to try to go into these next 4 slides and kind of synthesize a lot of their work. For the secondary students, an AM/PM, right, morning, afternoon. This would mean on a Monday, students would come to school periods 1, 2, and 3, either in the morning or in the afternoon. And then on a Tuesday, they would go to school periods 4, 5, and 6. There are definite benefits to this model. Students coming to campus every day, providing accountability for those students, seeing them every day. There's definitely peer relationships and social emotional benefits to students coming every day. And then you see a number of cons. I'm going to just kind of let you know ahead of time that a lot of these cons show up as pros on the alternate model and vice versa. So it kind of seem repetitive as we go through some of this. But they're not liking the secondary folk that this is not a 6-period day. They think that there's going to be a huge imbalance of requests for who wants to come in the morning versus in the afternoon. They almost unanimously decided that this was going to be anticipated lower attendance. They think that our older kids will not think it's as big a deal to only miss 3 classes. And these last 2 bullets I think are important to talk about. They may not seem like they impact everybody, but if you generally, our athletics are period 6, which is usually at 2 o'clock in the last period in the afternoon. In an AM PM model, this happens in the morning and at night. We have a number of walk-on coaches that would not be able to necessarily appear, twice in a day to teach that class. Likewise, we have a lot of 8th graders in Torrance with a strong history of having them articulate to our schools a year early, and having them have to disrupt their important middle school instruction and day to bus back and forth in the middle of the day would also be problematic. Next slide, Gil.
Wait, about this page. Terry Reagan's.
Yes.
It says students come to campus. Do you really mean that? 5 days a week?
4 days a week, sorry. 4 days a week is the proposal that our teachers would like to move forward.
Okay, so that would
yeah,
days a week here. Okay.
Yes, you're right. 4 days a week. Thank you for catching that. For the alternative day model, the AB model, they think that this is more of a routine and has a feel of a normal school day. Only half the number of students are on campus, better for cleaning than having 2,000 students at a high school campus. They do think it's better attendance, and they are more confident that the older students are going to be able to handle the asynchronous learning that will be expected of them on the learn from home days. And again, that art athletics, at the end of the day, we also have part-time teachers. Not all of our content areas have full-time openings, and an AB model, or an AM PM model, sorry, is a little bit more problematic, that the part-time teachers here would be teaching at the same time every day. Next slide, Ben, or Gil, who's doing my slides. For the elementary school, you're gonna see that this is almost the opposite. They strongly feel that daily attendance is best, 4 days a week, Mrs. Reagan's, is best for the instructional and social emotional needs of the students. Teachers building their rapport, their relationships, is consistency of instruction, not having multiple full days away from the classroom, and also in that AM PM model, they really feel strongly that being able to instruct them on what they're either going to do when they go home for the PM, or the PM students what they would do early the next morning for only about a 90-minute block of time, they feel is much more doable for families and for students. They are aware that this means, though, that 100% of their students are on campus. So the cleaning increases exposure, is difficult to clean between the AM PM, is difficult. Also, they also had a lot of discussion around the equity issue of who gets AM versus PM, especially with our younger kids. Students may be tired in the afternoon and be less responsive. And of course, they really do understand that they are promoting a different schedule than middle and high school, and that is a con in itself. Next slide, Gil, almost last slide. And finally, their analysis of the alternate day AB model. They do think it's advantageous and they are excited about how much they may be able to teach in a day with only half their kids there. And so that did receive a lot of discussion from the elementary committees. It of course is a pro to have only half of the kids on campus for effective cleaning and dismissal, and having kids enter and leave campus. They really feel strongly though that that at home for a full day without a teacher contact is going to be tough, especially for our younger kids. May struggle with that type of learning, and also harder for parents to be able to support that. The more days in between instruction, they really think that they have to do a lot more reteaching than if they were seeing students 4 days a week. So in conclusion, if you couldn't tell from those last 4 slides, the secondary school committee does prefer the AB alternate day model, and the elementary school instructional committee does prefer the AM/PM model. Realizing that that may not be possible to have the district on 2 different schedules, but bringing forward their recommendations nonetheless. Thank you.
Thank you for that extensive presentation, covering a lot of what the task force has been doing. The reason 4 days versus the 5 days is that's my first question. Why 4 days rather than 5?
Right. That's a good question, Mrs. Reagans. And I think even from the very first model we saw from the state, and many models that are being given us from the county are 4-day models. We utilize this very successfully during our 3-month closure. I think the professional development required for our teachers is immense. I think the professional learning community time is also vitally important. The initial design or discussion during the 4 days of instruction didn't have that time carved out like we already in our regular schedule. And we anticipate that there's even more need for the professional learning committee or communities than how important they are right now. It's possible that a distance learning teacher may be teaching kids from a couple of schools, and they would need to speak with each other. So there's time necessary for the distance learning teachers to talk amongst themselves to make sure that we're consistent. We want 3rd grade to look the same, whether it's at Walteria Elementary School or at Edison Elementary School. And if a distance learning teacher is teaching perhaps students from 3 different schools, I do want to add, students will stay enrolled in their schools and will be part of their own schools. They're not leaving to go to a different school. But that it's important that they have that PLC discussion, but also that they are part of the PLC discussions with their grade level or content area for the teachers that are doing the blended learning model. So we even see there being a greater need for PLC discussions and not wanting to carve out that time during the week when students are there for either the AM, PM or alternate day. I think finally, there have been some creative community committee thoughts around, like at an elementary school campus, for example, on a Friday, that a teacher could actually do a synchronous lesson with all of their students and let the 2 different cohorts of students actually meet with each other virtually and be able to do a lesson, a combined lesson when you're only having half of your class, as well as the different populations of students that may need tier 3 interventions and supports, additional office hours, and time for the teachers to plan. I think we don't want to underestimate at all the work that our teachers did and have done and will continue to do to be able to provide the right instruction regardless of what that is, and expecting that we may, and we have to plan to turn around on a dime and do what we did this year and go back to all distance learning or go back to hybrid. And I think to have that time built in with that gives us that flexibility to do the best job that we possibly can.
Okay. Thank you. Are there other comments, questions from?
Did we not have any statements from the public?
Manaan, did we have anything from the public? Still nothing. No.
Okay. I'm happy to go first, unless someone else wants to jump in front.
Mr. Gerson, go ahead.
Gil, do you mind pulling up slide 6?
What's on that slide, Mr. Gerson?
Is that slide? Can you back up 1, 2, slide 5, please? A couple of questions on cleaning. So there's been, I've heard this both from parents and from teachers. I know in the past, from my conversations with Dr. Stowe, that there are, or have been in the past, 2 different disinfectants available, 2 different companies that the EPA has approved that we're allowed to use. I know that previously staff wasn't and teachers weren't happy with the 3M product, and that there was another product that was going to be used. So I wanted to ask for a little more clarification since this is being stocked. If you could please tell us a little bit about the approved disinfectant.
The one that I know of that's working in the backpack that one of our custodial has is from a manufacturer called BioEsk, and that's the approved one for the EPA. I believe there is also another one. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find out for you what the other manufacturer is. There, of the 44 electrostatic sprayers, actually I do know the other one. The 4 of them are the heavy duty ones by Clorox themselves. So it's on a roller stand with the spray. So that's the Clorox brand disinfectant inside of there. The one that you see he's using is by Victory. That's the name of that manufacturer. And then the disinfectant is called BioEsk.
Thank you very much. Could you move to slide 7, please? Oh, your slides don't. Oh, yes, they do. Good. And I don't know if this is a question that you want to take, Mr. Mara, or perhaps Dr. Crumpy wants to jump in. So master schedule is a very complicated thing in normal process. It's a big puzzle. When you're trying to set up schedules, you're trying to figure out where teachers will be placed, and you're trying to figure out how to plant students into classes. It really is a challenging puzzle. I'm curious what kind of help we have for principals, because I know some are experts at this and it won't be a problem and they love puzzles, but what kind of supports do we have in place to help schools that that may find this a little more challenging with the addition of parents choosing whether it's A, B, or AM, PM?
So every year around summer, it's usually around 1st or 2nd week of July, we contract with Power School and we bring on board a person, her name is Ronnie, to spend 3 days with us. And she'll go over some of the technical pieces on how to schedule, you know, because you do it once a year, sometimes we need a refresher. So she's coming back again this year, but obviously with a bigger challenge once we know what all the different iterations will be when it comes to a schedule this year, right? Because if you're going AM, PM, or a alternating day, you know, how do you identify those students? How do we tag those kids and track those students? Or if we have students that are purely 100 virtual, do you need a virtual track? And last Friday, this was actually addressed by the Power School User Group meeting of Southern California, where we had dozens of districts on the call. and the head scheduling guru from PowerSchool joined us all. And there was about, about 30 plus districts asking all the same questions. I use PowerSchool. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And how do I get this done? So luckily we do have services of PowerSchool through our contractor. And, to be honest, I have a pretty hotshot team here in IT who are working out with our administration and looking at how this may play out depending on the model that we go with. And as you know, we have a couple of really good principals, and some of them were also on that call on Friday, who've already been working with my team. And like any year, even in normal years, we just support them all through the summer and help them out. Sometimes we have new administrators that are new to scheduling and bringing them on board. So there's a bit of a learning curve there. So we'll continue to do the same. And then as soon as we find out from instruction what our orders are, we're just, you get to it. I mean, it is not, not going to sugarcoat it, Jeremy, it is not going to be easy at all. Dr. Scott McDowell is a great expert on this too. And I've chatted with him. Scott, so what do you think this year? And he just chuckles and laughs. So that's not a good sign. So, but I know he'll help out, and we'll just have to put our heads together. And Dr. Crumpy, if you have anything else to add, there's one thing in theory, right, to say this is how it's going to look in the model. But once you start programming it into the system, things can get a little awry, right? So if I'm a virtual teacher and I have kids, at Victor, but I'm tapped and I need to provide instruction to students at ENZA, for example, how do I make sure that the enrollment record and teacher of record is, intact, especially when it comes to state reporting and attendance? Because now I've got to take this data and report it up to the state. We just need to make sure that the accuracy is all still there. And not to mention, generating report cards, transcripts, and all of those things if you've got multiple records in different schools, right? Or if you're a teacher and you're a co-host teacher at another site, because again, we're trying to adjust for students that may stay at home 100%, or maybe some of our instructional staff who, for whatever reason, maybe a medical reason, can only teach from home in a safe environment and may not be able to provide an in-person instruction, right? So they're probably delivering instruction maybe from home. So there are two big factors there. And as you know, it's going to be tough to kind of line all of those things up. So.
Well, I know as parents are choosing and trying to get them into the type of program they want and the scheduling, and then Dr. Crumpy had mentioned that there is the possibility of changing types, people wanting to come back from virtual into an in-school program, that I just know there's going to be so many moving parts, and I was just curious about support, because it seems like that is going to be a huge challenge for administration. I wanted to ask another question on cleaning. So what's the thought on cleaning in between classes?
Right, so because we have limited custodial staff, right? So I assume you mean passing period, right?
Yes.
So, right, so kids going from period 1 to period 3, even with a 6-7 minute passing period, there's no way we're going to disinfect it by the true definition of disinfect every classroom between passing period, right? Even with the Victory system that you see with our custodial there on his back, we estimate 5 to 7 minutes to disinfect an entire room with just that, with that device, right? So the guidance from CDC and even CDE and the Department of Health is to, they never tell you how many times to disinfect any space. Clean and disinfect frequently. So the word frequently is used often. So and this has been a discussion. Do you hire more custodial to try and get those those touch points cleaned up a little more often, right? So I think a lot of it is going to depend on the students and faculty and staff, doing the behaviors that we know we've been taught so far, right? The distancing, washing your hands frequently, not touching your face, not adjusting your mask too often is the best way to ensure that you don't leave germs, bacteria, or virus on any of the surfaces. Because from a manpower standpoint, I've been talking with Richard Vasquez and in our cleaning facilities department. How would we disinfect the entire school between a passing period, right? There's no guidance in any of the documentation, and there's nothing that says we have to, right? We just have to do the best we can. So.
Is that certificate still available for teachers to be able to use Clorox wipes in their classroom?
Yeah, so we just learned that our Keenan training on the videos online, you can go online and get your Department of Pest Regulation certificate. You take the course called Intermediate Pest Management, and it's a 20-minute course. And you learn the difference between cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting, and the type of cleaning agents that are allowed on our campuses. And you get that certificate, and you now are certified to use Clorox wipes. So, and that would help a lot, right? We've been discussing that with Dr. Liberati on how we can get that course distributed and out to folks so that we all know how to disinfect our own spaces, because custodial staff will need the extra hands to help keep things cleaned up.
Thank you. Can we move to slide 10, please? And so I pulled this one up because of childcare. I'm thinking that parents are going to be most concerned about, especially to me, I think the AM PM would be more challenging for childcare issues, just thinking as a parent. And I didn't know if anyone wanted to talk about some of the things that I've discussed with you guys about increasing childcare opportunities and what might be in the works.
Dr. Gerson, I can tell you that about 30% of our elementary families have indicated that they want childcare. And that was a good survey information. I know Dr. Kim alluded to it, but I'm not sure until we get the orders. We're just, and I know how many times have we heard this tonight, but I'm not sure that we're at a point to discuss it other than, and Dr. Kim, correct me, except to give an overarching statement that says we're working very hard and we're very committed to trying to provide childcare options, especially at the elementary level, so that our families are feeling that they can go to work and have their kids in a safe space. I just don't know that we know enough to be able to elaborate at this point.
Unfortunately, what Dr. Crumpy said is basically what I would be saying as well. As I think the term I used earlier in the presentation, I said in active discussions, and that is what is occurring sometimes on a daily basis with community partners and other district divisions. Unfortunately, again, we do need to wait for the guidance to come out, because the guidance may direct us not to allow having other groups on campus or other community partners on campus. We just don't know, and so we do need to wait to see. But as also Dr. Crump said, we're committed to doing absolutely everything we can to provide childcare products, activities, choices for parents. But at this time, we can't promise anything, again, until we actually see guidance, as well as any of those groups that we've mentioned previously. They can't necessarily immediately promise anything either, because there's licensing issues, they have their own facilities issues, their own budgetary issues, employment issues, and so on and so on. I'm sorry I can't be more forthcoming or more specific, but this is quite an endeavor that we're trying to embark on right now.
I just wanted to make sure we gave it more time because I know I've even been sending emails and even to Dr. Gilchick trying to nudge things as well. Can we go to next slide, 14? I guess. Sorry, I skipped 13, but that's fine. Let's go to 14. I want to talk a little bit more about athletics since had the meeting to opportunity to listen to CIF Executive Director of California. On preconditioning, what's being discussed? Are we talking about whole teams? Are we talking about groups of 10? Are we like, what kind of discussions are being had about preconditioning and summer training?
So the preconditioning activities, we're utilizing the guidance from CIF, which identifies students doing these kinds of activities, which are essentially fitness oriented in pods of 5 to 10. There's also 2 phases that CIF outlines. There's a phase 1 and a phase 2. Our presumption is that we're only going to operate for summer athletics within phase 1, which really just is essentially training for fitness aspects with no equipment, no balls, unless it's something that they can do without sharing.
And I know this is something that you and I discussed, but parents don't know. But basically families that choose the virtual learning plan could still have the choice to participate in athletics. That's still true, right?
Yes, that's correct.
On the music side, I see that we have Department of Public Health guidance on live music. So I want to thank my TTA liaison for sending me the guidance from the National Federation State High Schools Association and National Association for Music Education, and helping educate me on the difference between instrumental instruction and, as you know, trying to learn about droplet spread. And it seems to me that instrumental music is not nearly as nearly a risk environment as I originally would have thought. I don't know, live music makes me think of singers and a little different environment than an instrumental music room. And now that I've really learned that it's not as, I mean, so much lower risk than I thought it was, unless you're playing the recorder or the flute. How are we addressing band programs? What's being talked about?
So this is one where we're really awaiting the guidance, but we have an extracurricular, committee that is working on it. And I know I've seen a few snippets of the draft, and we're waiting because there was specific information in there where there might be just a little bit different restrictions. I don't want to guess as to how they may change it in a final document where they're permissible, but maybe with different guidance than 6 feet apart in an indoor situation. So we really just need those health orders before we can comment on a lot of these different issues.
All right. Slide number 15, please. I want to see. I'd seen Mr. Maritsucci. I don't see him, but I want to thank him. The requirements for distance learning, a lot of what I was talking about a couple weeks ago, and now seeing that the law aligns with that, I wanted to thank him because that's right in line with what we were discussing a couple weeks ago. Can we move to slide 21? First, let me say, Dr. Crumpy and the instruction committee, very, very good job. Thank you so much. I had such concerns a couple weeks ago, and I think you guys are doing an amazing job. I love the pros and cons list. And I've received a lot of comments, both from within the district and outside the district, on this not a prepackaged program, and really taking advantage of TUSD teachers in both environments. And I feel like we're really working toward that two options, that now if we're at 80-20, but that we can really give families as close to something that would make them as happy as possible, because none of us are going to be completely happy. But I just really want to commend you. I think you guys have done an amazing job, and I thank you very much for that. Slide 28 with my final question. And it's not to you, but it's to all the parents who are watching, because I love that we have a lot more than double what we had a couple weeks ago. And that is how are families going to feel if the school board does follow these recommendations and have a different feeling, a different scheduling for primary and secondary students. And so I would really love to hear from our families how that affects them and how they feel about that. I think your pros and cons list, or the instructions committee's pros and cons list, are great. And thank you for condensing them. But that's where I would really like to hear family feedback, because that, of course, concerns me. I don't know how parents will balance that, especially with childcare up in the air. And I know we've talked with, outside help. We've talked about additional facilities. We've talked about transportation. We've talked about so much stuff to make childcare happen. But like you said, it's still up in the air. So thank you very much for the time.
Okay, thank you. Then, there are comments from board members. Oh, Dr. Gerson. Say that incorrectly. Anyone else on the board? Don Lee.
As the least educated member of the board, which I've been reminded of by Mr. Gerson, or Dr. Gerson. So that's okay. I'm on, the Hunter S. Thompson list of potential doctorates, but it hasn't quite happened yet. But anyway,
I can't believe it's done. I can't believe it's uploaded.
Anyway, what I'm impressed by is we had a board meeting the first part of March, not talked about any of these things, and now, what, later, 3.5 months later, we've completely invented a way to teach kids on the fly between then and now. We're coming up with a way to do it for the upcoming school year with multiple options and variables built into it. We've done a good job of talking to our customers to figure out what they want. Some of the parents want to still induce at home learning. Great, we can probably accommodate that, and we can accommodate everybody else. I would have liked to have found a way to get middle and high school kids in the same schedule as elementary, but I don't think that's going to happen, because I think the elementary plan does what it has to do. Those younger kids learn very differently than the older kids. And I think it's really important, because you really teach them how to read for the first 3 or 4 years so they can learn later. So I'm really, impressed with that idea. So consequently, hats off to everybody involved in this process. It has been, you just basically had to reinvent education in the last 90 days, a couple of times. And in the face of a lot of people that probably, are concerned and their voices need to be heard. But I think we kind of synthesized as much of this into one coherent plan at this point that I am impressed with, and look forward to seeing how well it works, because I think there's no higher calling in a society as to educate your children, and this crisis can't affect that, or else we've got some serious societal problem. So, you know, this I think this is a good plan. This is the plan that everybody can execute, and look forward to seeing it done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Board member, Mr. Hahn or Betty, or Mr. Lee, Mrs. Liu.
I feel pretty comfortable with what staff is doing, you know, the executive staff is doing here. I want to commend you guys for taking on this enormous task of converting our school curriculum to a blended learning environment. So keep up the good work so far. I know there's much more to come, and definitely I feel much more comfortable hearing that you guys will be following the county guidelines. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Liu. Mr. Hahn.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank everyone on this task force, every committee, all 6 committees. You guys have done an exceptional, amazing job. And I want to seriously give my gratitude for all your time and effort, planning and thinking, being collaborative, and coming up with these great ideas. You guys have looked under every rock, talked about the things that we're all thinking, and have really come up with great ideas. So I want to first give my hats off. And I know that no one sees what you guys are doing. I know that people may not understand what you're doing, but you are thinking what we're thinking. And I think that you have exposed and brought attention to things that need to be brought to attention. So I want to just tip my hat off to all of you. I cannot imagine, like Dawn said, 3 months ago, where we're at and where we are today. It's because of all of you guys. So first of all, I want to say thank you so much. I have one question, and then I'm gonna make a comment. The first question, Katie, to you is, can you please explain the instructional minutes? I just went through all of AB 77. That was one long legislative bill. And I think that I learned a lot, because in that legislative bill, it says that there's 240 instructional minutes from 4 to 12, 230 instructional minutes for K through third. I mean, first to second, first to third, and then kindergarten has a lower, yeah.
Yes.
And when I read that, I thought that was just normal, not realizing that is a significant lower amount than what is traditional. So can you explain to the public what is the traditional amount, why it has been lowered, and how that is going to enable us to, and that's the reason why we need to do 2 hours maybe in person, 2.5 hours in person if we go AM, PM, and then after that do asynchronistic. And by the way, for the public, synchronistic means that you're going to have interaction with the teacher. Asynchronistic means that you're going to be by yourself. I just want to make sure that people understand those terms, because they may not understand what we mean by those terms. So can you explain?
Yes, yeah, great question, Mr. Hahn. Typically 4th through 12th grade, and I'm gonna stick with that one because then it gets a little less for, you know, K3. Is it 360 minutes a day is a typical school day. And we go to school a little bit more than that, to where there's wiggle room, and as parents, I'm sure, you know, watching from home, you know, there's like final exam schedules, or you know, or sometimes there's a few things that we do that they've got, you know, minutes to spare sometimes, as we call it. But what this did, and this is new, I mean, that we really got a first glimpse of this in time for our committee meeting last Thursday to just mention it, but because we wanted to finalize the pros and cons, we haven't really delved in yet. But really what this allows, and I'm going to just make a couple of assumptions right now, that we don't really want to reduce the face-to-face time with kids. That we're trying to optimize that as much as possible. So if I make that assumption, and I apologize if I'm making that assumption, but I can guess that the committee, from hearing what these teachers have said over the last month, is they can't wait to see the kids and they want to see them. So that said, this really allows the asynchronous work to kind of have a value to it, so that kids are not sitting in front of a screen for hours and hours at end, you know, with lessons. And so it allows us a little bit of flexibility to maximize the face-to-face time with kids, and then have that asynchronous time, either AM, PM, or on alternate days, kind of make up for the difference in instructional minutes. So it gives us a little bit of flexibility. If that kind of answers your question. Interesting and different from what we did in the spring, though, is we do not get to divide those minutes up over 4 days. So it is 5 days of school. Those minutes are daily. You know, they're not weekly. And maybe there's different trailer bill language that gives us, you know, it's too soon because it's just now being signed. But I think it does give us a little flexibility to optimize the important work that we have learned of what works asynchronously, what works in that off time. The very first thing the committees spent 2 weeks doing, and we did this on purpose before, because I knew once we turned them loose on the models that you know, we were going to forget something. And the very first thing they did was talk about what worked. What did we do from March to June that worked? And what didn't work? And we know there's things that we did that didn't work. And we learned that there were things that I think our teachers were working very, very hard on that wasn't real efficient. And we learned that there's better things that kids can do at home and be good at them and learn from them. And then what is it that time needed in the classroom is valued? So I know I expanded a little bit on your question, but that kind of goes together with, I assume, our Thursday instruction committee meeting is now start talking, now that they can kind of quantify those minutes in a high school, and you take those minutes and you divide by six classes in a day. And now the teacher can start thinking, okay, in this asynchronous time, this is the amount of, you know, time of the value of the lesson that I can do. And I think it just gives us some direction to help them start wrap their brains around it, because this asynchronous time was something that teachers are really struggling with. Not distance learning with a teacher who's going to live instruct every day, but this fear that we were going to lose kids when we were teaching all day long and they're going to be somewhere else and we're not going to be able to make that connection. So I think it really, I'm not sure who wisely came up with this idea, but I think it's actually will value and make our synchronous and our in-person face-to-face learning be all the more valuable.
Thank you, Katie, so much for that. I just want to make a comment, just kind of holistically to everyone who's watching or listening here. One of the things that we have to understand at a time like this is that we have to be understanding of each other. We all have different views and comfort levels when it comes to this pandemic. There are those who feel like, you know what, this pandemic is no big deal. We got to be at school. And that's why we are offering the hybrid learning model. But there are those who believe that this pandemic is absolutely real and that we all should be afraid. And that's why we are offering the only online version. What I'm saying is that we all are different. We all have a different comfort level when it comes to this virus. And we have to understand that. And we as a district, we're not making you all go one way, all online or all hybrid. We're saying that we understand that people have a different comfort level, and we are addressing that comfort level. So for those who feel like, you know what, for people who are so fearful, get your act together, understand that their fear is legitimate for them. And that's why we are offering this online version. And for those who are saying those people are crazy, they don't care about anybody, no, you have to understand that they really feel the need to have a sense of normalcy. We're all different. We all have a different level of comfortness. And that's why the beauty of what we're coming up with is acknowledging that. We have the hybrid for those who feel like they need to come back. And then we have all the online version for those who feel like, you know what, I need to stay at home. And I hope that we have that sense of understanding, especially in our community, that we will not judge each other. We will not put down or cast down or ridicule or mock the other side, but that we would come to that understanding and understand that as we are coming to that understanding, you know, one of the things is that the message that I want to get across to everyone in the public is this: what we're going through right now is not a financial crisis. It's not an educational crisis. It's a health crisis. And the decisions that we're making are based upon health and science. At the end of the day, we're not scientists. We're not health officials. And therefore, we have to make decisions based upon what LA County Public Health is telling us. No matter whether we agree or disagree, we have to follow what LA County Public Health is telling us. This is why, as Dr. Company mentioned, that we cannot go 5 days full time. because LA County Health is asking us to social distance, and we cannot do that if we have everyone come every day for 5 days a week. It's an impossibility. This is why if they ask us to wear face masks, we have to wear face masks, because again, this is what LA County Public Health, and whether you agree or disagree with the social distancing or the face masks or whatever, and they're all different opinions whether or not they're effective or not. But at the end of the day, there's only one institution that can shut us down. That's the LA County Public Health. That is the state government. Even now, we're seeing that the government, the California governor, is closing the beaches for July 4th. They're closing down the bars. They're taking back all the reopening plans, whatever it may be. Whether you disagree or not, they have that power. In the same way for us, the decision that we made is based upon what LA County Public Health is directing us. This is not our own opinion. This is not TUSD administration wanting their own way. No. This is really being driven by the guidelines of LA County Public Health. Everything you've heard today, you've heard that phrase over and over again. LA County Public Health, LA County Public Health. And we're working with them to do the best that we can and the limitations that they are telling us. Because at the end of the day, we want to do what's safe for our students. At the same time, as we're thinking about the safety measures, the next thing that we have to consider is what education process that we will choose. We're going to choose not that which is easiest for TUSD. We will do what is best for our students. If that means that in our elementary that we go AM PM model, and for our middle school and high school that we have to go alternative day model, then so be it. Just because we choose one, it does not mean that we're going to choose it for all. I think that we're going to leave it to the instruction committee and to us to figure out what is best for our elementary kids, what is best for our middle school and high school kids. And that decision may be hard on the parents, and we understand that. We understand no matter what decision we're going to make is going to be hard on the parents. Whether it's AM, PM, whether it's alternate days, we understand. And you know what? Not only for our parents, but even our teachers who are parents. They also have children, and they're going to have to make those tough decisions as well. We're all in this together. But what we can assure is that we're going to try to do the model that we believe is best for each grade level, whether it be elementary, whether it be middle school or high school. So I don't want everyone out there to think we're just choosing one model because of the fact that that's the easiest way for us to go. That's not going to be the case. We are trying to do what's really best for all of our students. This is the thing that I got taken away from all of these committees. Today, I was able to listen to all the task force committee, and that's one thing I've learned. Because everyone thought about what everyone is going through. Everyone is so different. Everyone has absolutely different needs. And all we can do is work within the LA County guidelines to determine what is best for our students. So this is what I feel like the task force is trying to accomplish. And that's why I am in deep gratitude for all their hard work, because they have taken these things into consideration, from operations, from social community, family, instruction, you name it, they have done it. And so I hope that you understand that the message I'm getting across is this, that we're really driven by what LA County Public Health is telling us. They have given us the guideline. That's why you hear always tomorrow or hopefully this week, we will get the final guidelines. But no matter what may happen, I hope that you understand that we are understanding the diverse thoughts that are out there. For those who are fearful of the virus, for those who say, you know what, there's nothing, we're going to provide for options for both of you. Because you know what? Both of your concerns are valid in my opinion. And that's why for me, that's why we have these options. And these are the options that we are considering. And so I hope that you understand that as you discuss these things online or on Facebook, whatever it may be, that when people ask you, why can't we go 5 days a week? You say, oh, it's obvious, because LA County Public Health. When they ask these questions about why do we have to wear face masks? Oh, it's obvious, because LA County Public Health. Not because of administration, not because of whatever, but given by these guidelines. And so that's why, again, I want to tip my hat off to all of the task force and everyone here for all their hard work, for all their understanding. And for all you parents out there, thank you for going through this with us, for expressing your opinions, for letting us know what you were thinking. And we look forward to seeing what this will look like coming this fall. But I appreciate this discussion for today.
Thank you, sir.
Is it okay? I just got a letter, if I may read into, can I read a letter?
Is it relevant to this discussion?
Yeah, it's on this topic. So I figured.
Is it okay with everyone else? Is there consensus? Yes, I see heads nodding.
Okay. Dear Dr. Stowe, President Reagans, and the school board, I'm a teacher at South High School and I have reviewed the proposals and I appreciate the time that has gone into creating these plans. I'm concerned about mental health. Much of the focus has been for the students, which I agree with completely. All students matter is our focus. However, there seems to be a lack of effort to address mental health for teachers. The amount of stress and anxiety that we have faced since transitioning to distance learning with very little training has been extreme. In addition, the stress and anxiety of planning for this upcoming year is already starting to grow. Teachers are not trained psychologists to help students deal with their own mental health issue. What is the plan to help teachers with mental health? I'm also concerned about the lack of childcare options for many of the working parents with these options. What is the plan to help parents who are teachers with school-age kids at home, full-time working parents? Thank you for your time. From Christine Cruz. I believe that we have addressed the childcare issue already, but do we have anything for teachers for mental health?
That would be Dr. Liberati. I think it's EAP, right?
Dr. Egan.
Oh, it's Dr. Egan?
Dr. Egan, yes, please.
And Dr. Gersten, you're right. I mean, it will fall under some of the things that we have in place with EAP, but I think Ms. Cruz is probably asking for more than that, which is the staff support subcommittee, which falls under the one that I'm overseeing. And so there is a team of folks that does include teachers and counselors that have looked deeply into this. And, you know, so part of the efforts will include an ability to privately screen teachers to kind of see how people are doing as they're checking back in. And, you know, of course, I think you'll see a lot of overlap between the human resources team and this effort with the subcommittee and my team as well. But, you know, certainly there's been some detailed planning put together. Of course, we didn't speak to it in the slides tonight, but without prolonging us too long here, I just want to share that that's something that a team of folks have looked into. We're looking at the ways in which our current counseling staff could support our teachers, but knowing that the wellness of an individual professional adult is often a private thing, we're looking at the ways in which we can help guide them to some of those community resources that might fall outside some of their own mental and medical care.
Thank you, Dr. Egan.
Yes, thank you. And actually, I can say I did attend the task force today also, and there was considerable actually and attention to aspects that were part of the. Please do be rest assured that we are concerned about both the physical and the psychological well-being of our staff. Any other comments from any others, members or anyone else? I did have a couple of general comments. We haven't actually mentioned much in the terms of masks or health screenings, et cetera. Partly because we need the direction from the Department of Public Health, but partly because all of it is intended to try to make things as safe as possible. And truly there is no safe place. The Department of Public Health there will be cases of COVID. So we are proceeding as carefully as we can and in trying to take the care and the we need to create the best possible environment. There really is no safe place right now. I actually do have a couple of questions. One has to do with, we mentioned a few times having extra people on campus. So me considering the volume of PTA and other volunteers that do normally participate in the activities on a daily basis, how we address that? Does anybody want to address that?
Well, I'll take a little stab. And we're anticipating, and if you go back to that slide that our teacher did where it talked about phase 2 and phase 3, or we're anticipating awaiting we're going to tally how many times we say waiting for the guidance tonight, but because we think that they're going to be a little bit more rigid in some of these things. And then we anticipate that as we get things going, that we're going to be allowed to loosen them up. And so with actually Mrs. Reagan's help and connection, we actually had I was able to have a conversation with the Adventures in Art leadership, and something that they thought that wasn't going to be able to happen, and I brought something up with Mrs. Reagan's and thought it was just a wacky idea, was could we prepare some of these things and utilize some of our volunteers in very creative ways during that asynchronous time? So when with whatever model it is that is chosen, kids are going to have asynchronous time and time away from school. And so what kind of, could we model Adventures in Art projects and actually have the docents lead them through that from home? And I thought that maybe they were going to just kind of dismiss me of having to get, I just envisioned like a packing list of supplies and baggies, and they were thrilled. And so I think those kinds of conversations, once we kind of feel like, okay, we can get the master schedule, we got some models going, that now we can actually start, I want to say the fun stuff, because it's all been fun. But now we can really look at how we make a lot of these things better, better for kids. And I think, and our volunteers are so vital to that what other ways. So we just gave one example. So hopefully people listening at home can say, I now have another, another thing that I can do. Plus, or I think in conclusion, I think we need to do more of that asynchronously or off the clock of the in-person time, because I'm just going to guess that our teachers are going to be very selfish, as they should be, at not wanting to give up any of those precious minutes in front of those kids. And so what can we do to allow for kids to have those things and those experiences? That we've already got student activities directors and student council kids, coming up with what some of those other kinds of activities will be, as well. And I think we only could use probably 500 volunteers to do all of the ideas that, that are swimming around in most of our brains right now. So we're hoping that they really help us with that.
Well, it seems like Healthy Ever After could be adapted to that and used in that, again, asynchronous time. And my last question, actually, we've talked about the teachers on the task force. Thank you to all the task force folks. I do know how much time and effort it's taken, but the teachers on the task force have helped to formulate this plan and these recommendations. Is there a way now to go to the larger force and saying, okay, this is what I have in mind. You see this working for you? Can we, I hate to mention the word survey, done some of that, and I don't want to put it in that sense, but to get a broader opinion, I would really like to hear from the teachers that are in the district. I know that's probably not possible, but is there a way to get more of an idea from more teachers as to how they would see these recommendations? Did you guys hear Dr. Manning? He said that he's going to suggest that could be a question to the task force, that could be their task, if you will, that now that how do we take it to the teachers and get their feedback from them? Because, yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Thanks. Anything else from anybody? Oh, well, this again is a work in progress. This is intended to be a general overview, and we will have the workshop next week to hash out even more details, and hopefully we'll have the from the powers that will help to guide the session next week. But I think we're ready for this evening. It's been a long one, but I think it's been productive. Thank you all for participating. I think it is time to adjourn, but before we do, I wanted to give the board members an opportunity to words to Dr. Mannan, if you'd like, since he is sitting here. Okay, we will make sure that he can hear you.
I figured he already walked out the door.
No.
He's still here. He's still here.
Camera.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody have anything to say?
Oh, there he is. Oh, look at that. We got a long shot.
Anybody?
To say to Dr. Mannan?
Yes.
I can't see him. He's there, right? You can hear? Not if he's there and he can hear.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I mean, just something really quick. Okay.
What do you see?
Oops, hang on. Technical difficulties.
1 second. Oh, hold on. Oh, there we go. Hold on. Okay, there you go.
Why are we reverberating?
Well, I think, Betty, you can go now.
Okay. Oh, I was waiting for you guys. Okay. Just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Mannan, for your public service for Torrance Unified and several other school districts as well. You are, with your experience and from the other districts and also your expertise, you really were the perfect superintendent for our school district at the time and helping us pass bonds U and T and Y and Z. I met you a little over 10 years ago, and it's really, I can't believe that I only had a year and a half to work with you. And it's been great getting to know you, and thank you for all that you've done, you know, with construction bonds and overseeing all the new buildings. You not only modernize and further beautify our school district, but you also add on science labs for the elementary schools, gymnasiums for middle schools, and performing arts center for high schools, along with the Dr. George Mannan Aquatic Center. That's we're also very happy about. Thank you for putting that in place. I wish you all the best in your next chapter in your life, and please keep in touch. That's it.
Should I go next, Don?
Yeah, I don't think Terry can turn on her mic, so you better go.
Person, you are next.
Did she say I'm next time?
Yes.
So I confirmed with Dr. Mannan at the last meeting that I'm the only school board member who's actually been on both sides. And so first I can talk from the employee side. You know, 15 and a half years of teaching, and basically all of those years under Dr. Mannan. He was always larger than life when you're an employee, but yet he would stop, talk to you. He was very easy to talk to. You could tell how intelligent he was, and every interaction I had with him, like, I really felt were special. But when I took my first concentration class in leadership, a lot of other people in a teacher or counselor position would ask to follow like their principal. But of course, I always said hi. And so as an employee, I said, well, Dr. Mannan, you're number one in the district. Can I follow you? He didn't even take a second. It was an automatic, of course, because he was always exceptionally gracious as well. And he let me shadow him for the day. and every experience I had with him as an employee was awesome. And then all of a sudden we switched roles, and I went from employee, and all of a sudden he became employee. And when I got elected to school board, and again, the gracious person and amazing person that he is, it didn't faze him in the least. Here I am, you know, Dr. Manaan, it's great to see you. And the first words out of his mouth are, Jeremy, you can call me George now. And just like, you know, it's very hard for a student to call a teacher by their first name, even, you know, 20, 30, 40 years later. You know, I still call Mr. Boffman, Mr. Boffman. And yeah, but between the combination of what I learned in the leadership course and the veil being lifted and having uncensored conversations with Dr. Manaan, I always knew how intelligent he was. I always knew the financial guru he was. I understood, you know, I got, you know, anyone could, after talking to him, understand how much he knows about construction and how much he's done for the district and what he's done to protect the district by doing everything right and coming in under budget. But the thing that I would have never realized without my USC courses is a whole nother level of savvy and wisdom, and learning about a political frame of leadership, and really getting to know Dr. Manaan, and to have had a year and a half to be able to listen to him and absorb some of his wisdom. I know all good things must come to an end, but as I've told him, I'm a little sad that I can't keep sucking that wisdom out of him, because he is so much more amazing than I realized as an employee. Sitting on school board has really let me know what an amazing person he is and how deep his knowledge and wisdom go. And I am grateful for you, Dr. Manaan, for everything that you've added to me. And I am going to be a much better school board member going forward because I had the opportunity to work with you. So thank you.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hahn, did you want to reclaim your computer?
I'll speak actually, I could speak to you here. I think.
His mic isn't on.
Dr. Manaan, for me, I wish I had more time because I think for me, just watching you, I've learned so much. Like Jeremy said, that you are a man of deep knowledge, and it's amazing how much you know and how many things you have thought through. Every time we had our meetings, every time we talked, even those moments where I was asking you to do certain things and we were on the same page, but yet to see your conviction and to see your knowledge and how you thought everything through was absolutely amazing. But I think to me, what amazed me most about you is the short time that I got to know you is you're not a man of acclaim and not a man of applause. You're just a very humble man. It's almost as if you did your duty and you're leaving. You know, usually people go out with a parade. They want their, you know, ceremony. They want their like recognition for all that I've done. Look what all that did. And you just want to disappear. It's almost mind-boggling. But I think that's who you are. I think that you do things not because you seek that attention. You do things because it's the right thing to do. And that's one thing I have learned, a deep respect for you. Just watching you, watching how much you struggled and just thought things through, all the pressure and all the craziness that goes on. And I can't imagine you've done that for, what, 14 years in this district? And it's absolutely mind-boggling to me that you lasted this long. But it shows me because you wanted to do the right thing. And I think that's what shows me about your leadership style is that you're a servant. You're not a top-down authoritative guy, but really a guy that really means well. And I think your longevity demonstrates your leadership, which will always be a part of your legacy. And that's why I wish you all the best. I really wish you all the best. I look forward. I know you're not going to be done. I know you're going to still fight for schools and whatever you can somehow in the political realm up there in the north. But I wish you all the best. You deserve it. Torrance Unified will always be in deep gratitude and deep debt for all that you have done. So thank you so much.
Very nice. Thank you, Mr. Hahn. Let's see, Mr. Lee, I think you're the last but not least.
No, I think, well, okay.
Mr. Lee already did a video.
That's very good. I can just shut up, I guess. You know, I got to think about something I didn't say on the video, which was I've been an elected official almost 21 years. And in that time, there was one city manager in the city of Torrance when I was a councilman, and there was one superintendent, and both were transformational, well, I can say that, but that's okay, for their organizations. And I really think that Dr. Manaan, you know, everybody will talk about the bonds and the pools and those kinds of things, but I remember some times in your office when we didn't have all the answers and we had to figure it out, and we had to take little bites and big bites and figure it out. And I think that's, you know, when the community looked to you as the adult in the room sometimes to solve the impossible issues. Yeah, the bonds and those things will be the monuments, but where your management skill and savvy really was felt in 08, 9, 10, and 11 when the entire organization was falling apart, and from a financial standpoint, and we had to keep the organization going forward. We said the preservation of the enterprise, but that's what it was. And that was the place where I really saw the leadership. I mean, the bonds, we were salesmen, we're all salesmen. Where you saw leadership and management ability and to be able to keep the organization going. And you forget that for what, 6 years, you were both this, or at least 3 or 4 years, you were the chief academic officer and the superintendent.
3 years. 3 years. It seemed longer than 3, but
I guess for everybody else. So I mean, when you look at the achievements and what we did, yeah, there's a lot of buildings there, but that isn't the whole story, and that's all I wanted to say. I will miss you more than you can imagine, but hey, you got some stuff done. You did good. I was proud to be able to serve with you. Thanks, Dr. George.
well, thank you. And I think the piece that really about all of us is that we did it the right way. And that's what's important. And so everyone contributed to our success, but we ended up always doing it the right way. And I think that's what's important that we accomplished.
Okay, before we end, I reserve the right for the last word. I'm kind of responsible for George being here, able to have the privilege of hiring him. And that was 15 years ago, and that's been a long time, Dr. George. And that's why I want to be in this room to be here for the last moment of your time here in TUSD, because I was here for the first. So I very much thank mentorship and your here with, and I will always value the tidbits of wisdom that you have always offered in every situation, and most of them are historically bound, so that you have experiences that substantiate the things that you're bringing. We will be missing that. Just picking your brain today, I said, before you leave, George, have you ever seen a school district that had a different schedule for high school and elementary? How will that work out for us? And having those discussions has been really important to me in shaping my way of doing things on the school board. I also will miss your decisive style. You were able to sort of guide things along the way, but when a decision needed to be made, you made it, and there was no looking back. You just went on and moved forward and made it work for you. I think I've told you, I'm not sure I've told the world, that I do feel a little guilty still 15 years later, because I actually
talked to the board member that was in Dr. George's board at the time in Glendora about needing a superintendent and how we really wanted a quality guy. And she said, well, that's all well and good, but just don't steal my superintendent. And then it ended up that George came to us. So Doris, sorry, but I thank you for sharing him. And I know that you've gone on from your school board to real life too, so. Oh no, don't tell me that. But he's actually moving on to a new life for himself and his wife and to be near his son. And I'm sure it will be a wonderful, I hope it will be a wonderful time as you move forward. And that the pandemic doesn't interfere with that new stage, because who knows what's going to happen in the future for any of us. So thank you very much for everything you've done and all that you've been to TUSD. And it's your time now. Okay, with that having been said, I will entertain.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor? Say
Aye.
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 Dr. George.
Good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good night, everyone.